While not a sci-fi film, John Wick created a striking visual style and fictional world similar in tone and atmosphere to dystopian cyberpunk fiction. In this video, I will explore how the John Wick franchise exemplifies the cyberpunk style and reinforces Keanu Reeves' image as the on-screen face of cyberpunk. Just a warning, since I will be discussing certain plot elements, I will be going into some spoilers. Keanu Reeves has proven to be one of the most durable and bankable Hollywood stars. His cool factor really skyrocketed when he was cast as Neo in the 1999 cyberpunk classic The Matrix. His iconic turn as a cyber hacker turned messianic savior established his legacy as an icon for sci-fi fans. The groundbreaking, highly stylized action of The Matrix had a hand in the success of Keanu Reeves' next big franchise, John Wick. The first 3 chapters, along with the upcoming 4th chapter, have been directed by Chad Stahelski, who was the stunt coordinator for The Matrix and its sequels and also acted as Reeves' stunt double. John Wick has a simple but effective action premise. Keanu Reeves plays a retired hitman, John Wick, who is grieving for his recently deceased wife. When some cold-hearted thugs randomly kill his puppy and steal his car, he goes on a vengeance-fueled killing spree, which leaves a ridiculously high body count that would make even Rambo, the Terminator, and Michael Myers envious. John Wick's bloody quest for retribution entraps him within a dark world of secretive laws and agendas run by a cold, bureaucratic elite called the High Table, which is the mysterious council that governs the criminal underworld. So, what does this all have to do with cyberpunk? Well, let's briefly look at the formation of cyberpunk as a subgenre of science fiction. The term cyberpunk was coined by author Bruce Bethke, which was the title for a short story he wrote in 1980, which wasn't published until 1983. Cyberpunk fiction is generally set in a dystopian, high-tech society of the near future, and often features anarchistic anti-hero type characters such as outlaws, computer hackers, and delinquent youth who rebel against a decadent and oppressive system run by corrupt megacorporations. The lines between human and machine, actual and virtual reality become increasingly blurred, a recurring theme in the works of Philip K. Dick, whose story, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, inspired the 1982 visionary sci-fi film Blade Runner. Blade Runner was and is still one of the most definitive expressions of cyberpunk's visual style. William Gibson's prophetic novel, Neuromancer, published in 1984, developed the themes of cyberpunk to new visionary heights. Gibson coined the term cyberspace for the novel, which involves a jaded hacker in Japan who interfaces with a simulated virtual reality called the Matrix. In Neuromancer, Gibson conceived one of the most influential metaphors for cyberspace. Lines of light ranged in the non-space of the mind, clusters and constellations of data, like city lights receding. This urban metaphor for cyberspace also has its visual expression in the neon-lit cityscapes popularized by Blade Runner. It makes sense that cyberpunk would incorporate elements and tropes from film noir, such as hard-boiled characters, stark lighting effects, and bleak dystopian overtones. The John Wick franchise also has these neo-noir elements that create visual echoes to the cyberpunk aesthetic, such as the hard-boiled protagonist, dark neon-lit cityscapes, and themes of corruption and moral ambiguity. Gibson's short story, Johnny Mnemonic, got a big screen adaptation in the 1995 film starring Keanu Reeves, which preceded The Matrix as his first venture into the cyberpunk genre. After The Matrix, Reeves' association with cyberpunk was further solidified with the 2020 release of the hotly anticipated action role-playing video game Cyberpunk 2077. Reeves provided his image and voice for the character Johnny Silverhand, whose first name might be a nod to Johnny Mnemonic, but also evokes John Wick, particularly since Reeves' video game avatar has John Wick's patchy beard and shoulder-length hair. As previously mentioned, John Wick took a number of cues from the Matrix franchise, most prominently in its action choreography. The plot also shares some parallels with The Matrix. Similar to Neo, John Wick wrestles with his two identities. One is his identity as a happily married husband, while the second is his resurfaced past identity as a professional killer. The parallels to The Matrix are even more apparent in the casting of Lawrence Fishburne, who channels his Morpheus role in portraying the subversive underground figure of the Bowery King, who encourages John Wick to challenge the hierarchy of the High Table. However, despite these Matrix connections, John Wick's themes of fractured identities, vengeful antiheroes, and secret criminal organizations can be found across the action film genre without any specific connection with cyberpunk. John Wick's cyberpunk undertones are expressed more in its style than its themes. For one, the backdrop of New York City inherently lends itself to the cyberpunk style. Times Square for me immediately evokes the opening shot of the neo-noir cityscape in Blade Runner. This urban backdrop creates a dystopian aesthetic akin to cyberpunk, which is often characterized as a combination of high-tech and low-life, where technological progress pushes onward at the expense of social decay. John Wick also uses a similar color palette as Blade Runner, establishing the mood and tone of its dystopian world through an interplay of neon blues and reds, which gives the atmosphere a futuristic sci-fi vibe. The red circle fight scene is a good example of how light and color are used to aestheticize the violence. The scene of the Brooklyn safe house shootout is also worthy of mention. The whole scene plays off the almost video game style feel to the action, which even features one of the thugs playing a first-person shooter game. Footnote: the game in question is the cancelled CCP game Project Legion, which may only be in the film for product placement reasons. Either way, this video game trope is a great visual cue to stage and build anticipation for the impending action, while also blurring the line between the video game simulation and the actual shootout. I also think it kinda winks at us, the audience, who, like the gamer, interfaces with a screen for stimulation and entertainment on a vicarious level. John Wick also uses a style of gunfighting mixed with martial arts combat called Gun Fu, which was inspired by Hong Kong action cinema, particularly the martial arts style gunfights in director John Woo's movies, which, like in John Wick, are choreographed to resemble a dance. Speaking of which, I wonder if John Wick's name is also a nod to John Woo. John Wick's fighting style accentuates the idea of the gun as an extension of his body. The gunplay becomes almost an organic element through its perfect synchronicity with his physical movements, which all operate with a common purpose: to lock in the target and shoot. Indeed, John Wick is just one step away from becoming the Terminator. This synchronizing of the organic with the technological also evokes a cybernetically enhanced body. When John Wick cuts off his ring finger in Chapter 3, Parabellum, I wouldn't be surprised if he replaces it with a high-tech metal prosthetic, which would officially make him a cyberpunk hybrid of flesh and technology. In John Wick Chapter 2, the Hall of Mirrors fight is another visual expression of the franchise's affinities with the cyberpunk style. In designing the set, director Chad Stahelski was inspired by the end fight in Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, which was also set in a hall of mirrors. The disorienting projection and reflection of virtual images on mirrors places the action within an otherworldly simulated space. This sense of John Wick entering a virtual simulated space is enhanced by the voiceover for the art installation, which is a robotic female voice that sounds like an artificial intelligence. The voiceover proceeds to discuss the philosophical concept behind the installation, which is intended to expand our perception through a disorienting interplay of light, images, and reflections. This whole scene for me distills the cyberpunk style through creating a simulated space where virtual and actual reality collapse into each other. The John Wick franchise is alive and well, with Chapter 4 coming out in 2023. I'm excited to jump back into the John Wick universe and watch Keanu Reeves wreak some more havoc as he wanders through a Blade Runner-esque cityscape. As I've discussed, John Wick's Matrix influences, together with its hyper-stylized action and dystopian urban backdrop, evokes a cyberpunk atmosphere. The futuristic, dystopian ambiance is also enhanced by Keanu Reeves' presence, who continues to put his stamp on the cyberpunk genre. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you haven't, please like and subscribe, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.